For Paul, Jesus is the perfect icon of God. He's God's Son. And Paul's Christology is a very high Christology in the sense that Christ is pre-existent. So God sends the Son. Well, there has to be someone to send. In the fullness of time, God sent his only Son, born of a woman, born under the law, Galatians 4:4. Philippians 2:6. Though he was in the form of God, Jesus did not grasp equality with God as something to be clung to. He emptied himself. Okay? So Jesus is God. You know, as a matter of fact, Paul says as much in Romans 9:5. Okay? He also became human. And so Paul can say things like, God showed his love for us in that when we were enemies, Christ died for us. So God proved his love for us in that Christ died for us. Okay? So now we have to start unpacking that. And we find a little bit later in Romans, Paul will say, God did not spare his Son. Evoking the very imagery of the Genesis story that we also heard a couple weeks ago. Remember Genesis 22 and Abraham and Isaac, sacrifice of Isaac, the beloved Son. God doesn't spare the Son. So this is Paul's way of saying what John so famously says in 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. God holds nothing back in revealing his love for us. And those of you with children can appreciate this all the more. You know? Having someone who's part of you, God gives Jesus to us to show how much he loves us. Jesus, in showing forth God's love, and here we got to kind of fill in the story from the canonical Gospels. And what does Jesus do in his ministry? He teaches, he feeds, he heals, he reconciles, he reaches out to those who are in the margins. His primary vocation is to show forth God's love, to enact God's presence in the world. And as the gospel writer John says at the beginning of the Passion, Jesus loved his own, and he loved them eis telos. Not only to the end, but to the very full extent. So that the crucifixion, I would say that John makes explicit what is implicit in Paul. That the crucifixion reveals the full extent of Jesus' love. So elsewhere, Paul can say, be imitators of God, love one another as Christ loved us and gave himself for us. Or he just says in Galatians 2:20, I now live my life by the faithfulness of Jesus, who loved me and gave himself for me. That's Paul's understanding.